So welcome to Scrapbook Live. I'm Megan Jacks. Today is Wednesday, July 16th, and the layout I have for you today is a single page layout. But the technique we're going to learn today is kind of fun. It was really a little bit deceptive on when I first looked at this page. I was like, wow, they've used some triangles, some big triangles. I was all set to get my 18-inch ruler out and the rotary trimmer and show you guys how I make the big triangles. And then I read the directions. It's always good to read the directions. And then I realized that, nope, those are just some 1-inch strips, and we miter the corners, and voila, you have the same overall look, I guess, in a way. I think it comes down to a little bit like how the picture looks versus how we are going to put it together. I think if you had been able to discern a little bit more of how the layers worked, you would have realized that it's not triangles underneath a large page mat. We're actually going to build one of those big squares that you see is actually the base page. So I think in person, it will be a little more, you'll see how the page is made versus a picture of it when you visually just, quickly can't really tell discern the layers. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to my overhead camera and I'll show you what we got. So I have some pictures of Cody, and I've already cut and printed and cropped them the way I wanted. I stayed pretty much with the sizes of the photos here because of some of the details. That big triangle that pops down, I needed to make sure that my triangles were going to work. And so it was easier just for me to use their measurements rather than trying to get things to work, but you can play around with it. I am using Serene Waters rather than Poolside Paradise because I've already made a layout from playing in the pool this year using Serene Waters. So I feel in a way that I'm kind of committing to Serene Waters for pool this year. Poolside Paradise is beautiful. I do love it. I'm just going to tuck it away probably for other pool photos. Remember, I live in Arizona, tons of pool photos. I mean, that's pretty much all we do in the summer. If you're at a friend's house, you're in the pool. If you're at your own house, you're in the pool. So we get a lot of pool time. So what I was looking to do though is I was going to try to use 4 different papers to go around this page. And then I realized that I didn't have 4 papers. I really liked how they were working together. And I love, love, love this particular paper. And I've used another sheet of this and the other layout that I want to coordinate with, but it doesn't have to match perfectly. So I thought it'd be good to use this. So I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use 4 strips of it. We just cut some 1-inch strips. So you really can make this from scraps. That's what's really fantastic about this particular layout is you'll just use strips of paper. So if you ever save those 1-inch or those little strips you have left over, tuck them into a baggie or tuck them into your project folder. This is going to be one of those layouts that's quick to put together when you have just those strips of paper. We do want a base paper. When you read the instructions, this kind of mid-tone beigey camouflage that is this one right here, this beigey one, is actually the base paper. And then you layer your strips on top of it. I thought we would put the strips on and then layer a mat, like cut a big square and put that over it, which would give more of that impression that the papers are underneath. You don't necessarily need to do that. I actually might cheat and do it that way because I think I like that concept where this paper, this is going to be where they use the beige paper, the light tan camouflage as their base. I'm going to be using the blue goldfish paper. And I think what I might actually do is I might build this on a piece of white cardstock or cover sheet, and then come in and actually cut this paper to be just slightly larger than 11 by 11 and cover it up. Because what that's going to do is give more of that impression that I do have kind of those triangle pieces underneath. I think I'm going to like that a little bit more than necessarily building it on top of the fish paper. So with that in mind, let me show you the rest of my papers. I am going to be pulling in some orange. I've got some orange shimmer. And then out of the Weaving Waves pool water pack, I grabbed a sheet of water paper. I liked how this looked. So this is kind of going to be the overall vibe. You're going to see all of these colors and then coming in here. And the other reason I stuck with the Serene Waters is because my son's swim trunks, you can see, has that bright orange and blues. And so that works out really well. for the pool pictures this year. So let's get started. When I cut my paper here, I'm going to want to cut along this. I want each of my strips to have all of the colors. So I am using the same pattern paper on all 4 sides. You might want to use 4 different colors, 4 different patterns. You could use tonal, you could just cardstock, you could use maybe have opposing, you know, whatever you put on the left side, you put on the right side, whatever you put on the top, you put on the bottom. You do want to get this effect, you're going to want to make sure there is a difference between all of your pieces. But because I've got like an ombre, a gradient going on here, what I will be able to do is I will be able to get this going all the way around, and so it will look like 4 distinct pieces. I am going to tell you I have already cut my 1-inch strips because I had a scrap of this piece of paper and it worked out fine. So I didn't have to cut a full sheet. I had a scrap left over. So you can see here I've got all 4 pieces. And when I put them on, I'm going to put them on my paper with the reddish orange. I want to make sure, well, it'll actually work out, but this is how they're going to look. And then we'll miter the corners. But you can see I have 4 distinct sides. My other option would be I could go more like this if I really wanted to make it, you know, but I think I'm going to do, actually, I could do this way as well, which is fun, but I think I'm going to do this way. So you've got some options when you're putting your page together. As I mentioned, I am going to go ahead and use a piece of base paper. Let me grab that. I actually had set it aside, so I've got to dig out what I'm using. And I'm going to use the backside of the Weaving Waves texture paper. I'm just going to use the flip side of it. This is all going to completely get covered. Now in the directions, this would be your base paper if you want to build it the way the directions are. And then when you put your papers on, you'll cut a smaller square and whatever your base paper is would show through. As I mentioned, instead of having that 11-inch square open here in the middle, I'm going to cut my fishy paper slightly larger than 11 inches and it'll sit on top. And I just like the way that's going to layer as compared to just having it where you could definitely see the inside edge of my strips. I'm going to have this piece is going to actually sit on top. So I will have, I'll build that up on there. So one of the things they want you to do in the directions is they have you put the pieces on, and then what they do, let's see, I'm trying to get this all organized, is you would come in with your scissors. I'm going to use, let me grab just my regular scissors. And then once you have your pieces secured, you can lift up your edge and cut down here. And you can cut through both pieces and give yourself that mitered edge. My preference for doing something like this is going to be to cut off a 45-degree angle on each one of these darker corners. I need to make sure I cut the correct one though. So I am going to use, let's see if I can find I need to use something that I can see what I'm doing. I'm looking for, normally I have a journal pen that is metallic. I think, oh, here's a silver jelly. I'm going to cut off this corner. So I put an X there. I need to cut that corner off. Up here, I'm going to cut off this corner. This one, I'm going to cut off this corner. And down here, I will cut off this corner. So I've got those all marked. I'm going to grab my 12-inch rotary trimmer here, and I'm going to put my strip on the 45-degree angle, put my corner up here, and I'm going to cut off that corner. And I'm gonna do this on all 4 pieces. And this is going to allow me to have a nice clean cut. I don't have to worry about accuracy with my scissors. I'm only doing one corner. It's kind of a faux mitered look, but you can do this to make a page frame. This technique works regardless of the size of the papers that you're using, the strips. So if you're using 1.5 or 1.25, 2-inch strips, whatever you need to do, just cut one if you're doing a frame. If you're doing 2 pages, obviously you'd want to leave, you're going to, you would make sure you want to have a solid piece here. So this is going to get put on at the bottom. I'm going to show you how it goes together. Nope, this one comes up here. See that faux? My squared corner is underneath the mitered corner. And it makes it really easy to get those pieces. So there's how this goes together. This is my basic frame. So it's a quick mitered frame without having to cut both pieces. That will undoubtedly give you a better fit than if you had cut both corners, even at the 45-degree angle, or cut even both with your scissors. Because sometimes when you're lifting to cut through both pieces, you have to lift up both pieces to cut. You get a little bit more of an angle here, and then when the papers come back down, they kind of just don't fit 100% right. So yeah, let me know if anybody's having problems with audio. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Kristen, you might need to pop out and then come back in if you're having issues with the audio. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere this on. If you were building from scratch, or if I'm building it according to the blog directions, this would have been my base paper. This would have been what I would attach them to. But what I want is, instead of this looking like a frame that you can see into, because I can see the edge of my paper here, I want to have this piece sit on top, which is going to give more of that illusion that these are the big triangular pieces behind it. So it's a very subtle difference. Probably something you would only notice in person. You're not going to notice it on the screen. So I'm going to put these pieces in place. I did not put any adhesive on this corner over here because I need to get this other piece put in under it first. Once I get all of my framed pieces all the way around it, I will come back and add that adhesive underneath those triangle pieces. I did get a little here. I'm probably doing this. I should just do it. I should have done this the other direction as I am doing this now. I should have gone the other way. Whatever, I'm going clockwise or counterclockwise, I should have gone the other direction, and then I wouldn't have this conundrum. Oops. Got my silicone mat here, come down here and add some adhesive in each one of these corners. So there's my frame, all set to go. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut this just slightly larger than 11 inches, just a little bit. I need like 11 1/8. I just need it a little bit bigger. Actually, it only has to be, I'm doing this, it should be 10, just over 10. I can't count, guys. It should be 10, just over 10 inches. Because I've got, I have a 10-inch square in the middle because these are 1-inch pieces. So 10 and 1/8 inch. Now, if I really was concerned about conserving paper, I could definitely cut out the middle of this paper, but I don't care. And I'll tell you why. I've got like several sheets of this. You know, when you have multiple paper packs and you always seem to end up with the one sheet you keep ignoring the entire time. This goldfish paper, the opposite side to it is more goldfish, is that paper for me. It's the blue goldfish rather than the orangish goldfish. And I just hadn't ever really found a great way to use it. And I think it's going to work really well here. Now I need to center this piece on top of my layout, and that's easy to do because I'm square. I just find where it's hitting all of that frame, the mitered corners, and that's where it's going to sit. Yes, I see the comments about the goldfish snacks. I do love goldfish. I mean, they're terrible in some ways for your teeth because they just get all stuck in there and everything. Um, but I will say that I really like the ones that are the Flavor Blast. They're pretty delightful. Deborah's asking, does this replace the 9¼ inch in the handout? No, this does not. This actually replaces the background piece. So if I had built this as the blog directions indicated, I would have been putting these strips on top of this as a full sheet. Almost like this is the background and this is the frame coming in there. I am not sure. I see Kathleen, excuse me, asking about if I have this for sale. I'd have to look and see if what I have for sale. I may have a couple paper packs. I'm not 100% sure. So this page goes on as such. It's all set to go. I'm going to put some more adhesive in these corners just to get them to stick down. Now we're back to where we need to be on the blog. The measurements from the box. So step 3, we need to come in with a 9¼ inch piece, and they talk about using orange cardstock. I am going to be using orange shimmer paper because it looks good with this. So 9¼ we're back to the measurements, the same measurements that they use. So I'm gonna come over here 9¼ This would be a fun one if you wanted to use a decorative blade on this one, you could. I am gonna just stick with my straight blade, but I probably could have used the wave. The wave blade would have been fun in there. So there we have, and we're starting to see, we have a little bit of a bolder mat here, this effect. We have a little bit of a wider spacing. And then we're only gonna have a little bit of that orange showing through. So the next piece we're gonna cut is gonna be a 9×9. So we will have just a small bit of the orange showing through on each side. If you had wanted to gut these papers, you could. I'm not too worried about them. Like I said, I have lots of orange shimmer. I've got plenty of the blue goldfish. This piece here is out of that Weaving Waves texture pack. And again, 9 inches by 9 inches. And it's going to sit on top of the orange cardstock. So that's how that looks. So Deborah's asking the first one I put down, which was the fish, it's actually it's 10 and 1/8 because I cut it custom. So 10 and 1/8, you can write that on there on your handout. And then we went, the orange is 9¼ and then we have a 9 inch. If you build it according to the blog directions, you would not need that 10 and 1/8 inch piece because you would have built it on your base your base paper that would be showing through in lieu of the goldfish that I have here, the blue goldfish. Let me go ahead and adhere these pieces all together. And then this piece is going to sit on top of the rest of it, it sits just centered in the middle. I'm gonna do my best to, there we go. There is the base layout. I think it's super, super cool. It's got a really neat effect to it. I really like that. I'm glad I went with this way with the pieces. It's almost got a little bit of a pinwheel, like spinny motion to it because of the way it's all shaped, but it's pretty, I think it looks pretty awesome. Now, I've got my photos. Like I said, I already cut my photos and trimmed them to size. I did do like a little collage on the Epson PM, the creative print app from Epson. I just took the pictures of Cody diving in. These are actually screenshots or however you do it, still image captured from a video. One of the challenges with this particular layout is because we do have a large triangular piece that's going to come in here, this upper section, this area right here on your 4x6 photo gets covered up. So you've got to keep that in mind when you're picking out your photos that go here. That's why it worked out well that he's already into the pool and I kept the center focus at the lower edge of the photo, giving myself this dead space in the photo that I can cover up with the triangle, because that is a really fun, these triangle details are really a fun part of it, and I wanted to make sure that it worked really well. So now my challenge is, what am I going to make my triangles with? And this is where I'm coming into my scraps from the Serene Waters collection. And I am going to be using, I think my 3 pieces are going to be this orangish yellow color, this darker orangish color, and then I think this blue. My mats are the same size that's on the handout, and they're in blue cardstock. So just, that's detail, I forgot to mention that detail. They pop off the page really nicely. I'm pretty certain they are, yeah, I'm pretty certain I used the size on the blog directions. So I think I'm going to have this piece up here, and then have a piece over here, and I'm not 100% sure I can get the blue to work. I feel like it kind of blends in, but let's see. I may need to put the blue in the middle over here, and so the opposite sides I don't think are going to work really well for me. So let me cut this first piece here, and that is going to be is part of step 6. It's the bigger of the triangles. It starts with a 4x4 square. So I'm going to cut a 4-inch strip of my paper. And cut a square, so 4x4 square. And then I need to cut this on the diagonal. It's going to give me that larger triangle. This is going to sit here at the top. It has the illusion of continuing this line coming from your frame, but you can see there I'm covering up my photo, but the focal point is down here where he's dipped into the water. My other option is I could continue. I might just do, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to use all of the yellow, or this orangey yellow. It's kind of a really warm color, and I'm just going to bring those in here. I feel like I've got a lot going on. The original layout is maybe more, not quite as much going on with the papers, I guess, in a way. They're different tones, but they're all, and so I think having 3 different colors here is going to be a lot. I'm just going to chop this paper in half and get myself 2 smaller triangles of the same shade. It's all about flexibility. Do it works. I also like this because I'm not wasting paper. Remember, the other thing too about the blog, the images that we see on the blog, the layouts we see on the blog, they use all the paper. They use all the patterns because they want to show those details off. In the real world, when we're making these layouts, we sometimes don't want to cut all of our pretty papers. Instead, we'd like to be a little more conservative. So what that does is means that you just need to do what works best for you. So I think that's going to work a little bit better. I like how this is looking. I do have some letters. I did some die cuts, and it just says dive in. And they don't fit 100% on my, or maybe they will. It's hard sometimes when you're, and I think I need to get an exclamation point here. So I see Linda's comment, she likes it better without the triangles, and that is definitely something to consider too. I probably would do 2 triangles here, at least. I'm not 100% sure. I could even do something just like that, dialing it back. I might play around with it a little bit and see what I think. I like the triangles, but I do think that could be possible that that's just a little too much, or I would maybe, I could dial it back and have 3 different sizes. Triangles are a little bit big. And when you're invested in your photos, right? When you're invested in your photos, meaning that you care what's happening in them, it makes a difference. It changes your perspective. When you first look at this image, I mean, I can tell it's people hunting. Yeah, but I don't know who they are. Great. I don't really care. I'm looking more at the design of the layout. But in reality, when you start working with your own layouts, your own photos, you're more invested in the photos. You want those photos to shine and not, you don't want the rest of the layout to take away too much. You want the layout to support it, not be the main focal point. You want the the design to support your photos, to give them a nice little showcase, but you still want the photos to be the focal point. Yeah, I'm gonna have to play around with it, see if I like the triangles. And I think maybe I like the triangles if they're just a little smaller. Um, so I'll play around with that a little bit more. They have a journal box over here, which I did grab some paper to make a journal box. This is just some scrap cardstock. And their journal box, they do a 2x3. That's gonna be too big for me, I think. Let me just go ahead and trim this paper down to 2. The other challenge I have is my letters are in white, and so I really can't do a white journal box right there. I may have to repunch my letters, or I'm gonna have to come in with something a little bit different. I'm okay. I don't know. Maybe I might come in and I might recut my letters in blue. I think that's probably what I'm gonna do, is recut those letters. So imagine those letters in the dark blue. They'll pop off the page a little bit more. I've got some space here for some journaling. So yes, I do agree. I see Joanne's comment that the pool decking right here has that triangle effect to it. I don't know if I were to, it's just how the photo is. I agree. It is a little bit distracting when you're looking at, especially when you're looking at it from how you guys are, that overhead perspective. When you're a little bit closer to it, it's not quite as distracting, I don't think. Because you can see the rest of the photos a little bit bigger. Like, you guys are so far away that these are pretty tiny pictures of them. But when you're sitting here looking at it and it's a little bit closer, like maybe if I bring it up, it doesn't seem, you do start to get more distracted by him rather than some of the bigger details of the top. I see Kathleen's comment that I could maybe come in and do a frame on the upper. I certainly could. I could either do, I don't know. I'll maybe play around with that too. In the original blog handout, they did come on the cardstock there and they did, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, they did some stitching details because it is a lighter, that beige is lighter. They used the stitching detail in there. This is all going to fall apart now. I will put this all together off camera so I can take a little time to make some of those final decisions on, do I like how it's placed? I got to repunch my letters. But I think this is where I'm headed with it. I could probably come in, let's see, this is not a 4-inch piece. I know I have a 4-inch piece of, I'm going to cut a 4x4 square of blue. Cut it on the diagonal. I'm repeating the cuts that I made and I'll show you what I may be thinking that might work. But I'm going to run into the problem where, and that might solve my the white letter issue. Maybe. These letters are just kind of big. I could switch to a smaller. I'm giving them like little accent triangles. So rather than doing true, and I might change that to say jump in rather than dive in. And I'll tell you why, because when I look at it, all I want to see is the word drive in. And so that is really confusing to me. So I'm going to play around with this a little bit and I could bring it up a little bit to get those letters above the blue. But imagine that saying jump instead of dive and it being in the blue. But then I'm gonna have to watch because the dark blue up here, I'm gonna play around with it. I'm gonna have to play around with it a little bit to see exactly how I want this to work. And what I might need to do is just pop the, shadow these with that blue. I punch the same letters and I just shadow them a little bit. So we'll see. I'll play around with it a little bit, make some of those decisions, because this would be a fun little one to put up in my little frame that I have. I should probably show you guys what I'm thinking of doing. So this is pretty much the layout here. It goes together pretty quick. You can play around, you can make a second page. You can make an accent page with this one, or a complementary page would be to do the same concept and then either doing your triangles in a different orientation, coming up with just some square photos. You've got lots of options there. So one of the things I'm thinking of doing, and I just have to do it, is getting, so you can see up here, I have got a 12 by 12 just white frame that I got off of Amazon. It was like pretty cheap or whatever. It doesn't have glass, has like plexi in it. And I have a layout of my cat in there right now. But what I'm thinking of doing is over here on this wall or some other walls is making like a little gallery of some of my favorite scrapbook pages. Because sometimes you feel like they are frame worthy. And this would be one of those that you just feel like, okay, it's lots of fun, like picking out some single page layouts that are really of the 3 different kids I have, my husband and I together, just some favorite layouts to be able to showcase like that. So we will see if I can get that done anytime soon. But that's my idea. And so something like this I think would be really fun in a spot like that. All right, guys, that's pretty much what I have for you. So next week we will be getting together again. I'm not sure what the project will be, but we will get that figured out. I think I will be doing both Wednesdays, the remaining Wednesdays for this month. And then I will probably take, well, I probably will switch over in August. I switch over to Fridays, but the first Friday of the month is actually August 1st. So we will see, because I do want to take a week off in there, but I've got to look at my schedule simply because I've got some projects coming up I need to work on, and just, I don't know, a little rest and relaxation maybe. So, there's really not a lot of other announcements. The Creative Memories, the spend, get, buy, pick it promo is still available. I've gotten all of the promo bundles. The Heartfelt Noteworthy Days is super, super cute. If you like Noteworthy Days, but you are really wanting some of the beautiful like pinks and plums and purples in there, this is a really nice collection. The smaller tote bundle, I actually have the smallest of the bundles just here on my desktop, or the little totes, and it's kind of my catch-all in a way, because it fits 12-inch wide thing. So if I toss something, it's got some space. The medium tote is a nice size too. And the jumbo, the large, the deluxe tote, I have actually sitting over here on the floor next to me with a ton of my project folders in it. So for me, I like that because I can just look through what I'm looking for, and it's right here. It is heavy, so just so you know, but it is a great way to keep things organized, especially if you do have some floor space that you can just set it on the floor next to you. I can see it being a really good thing to have at a crop where you just want a little bit more of that space. It's not quite as big as a wagon, but it feels generous in size, in terms of you feel like you could have it sitting next to you and hold quite a few things. All right, guys, thanks so much. I will have this video up on YouTube later, and you'll be able to watch it. And then, of course, Facebook will show it to you as well. So I appreciate you guys joining me. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll do my best to answer. Thanks so much. I'll see you all next week.